Hey y'all, welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's Kay the PA. So after my first video on my experience as an EMT, my little brother texted me and he was like, "You seem unorganized." And I'm like, "You're the one who keep telling me I need to make more YouTube videos." And every time I make a video, he's telling me, "Well, you sound boring." I'm like, "You know what? I can't deal with you." So this time around, I took his advice and I wrote down some notes, and I'm going to be looking at these notes to be a little bit more organized. I really don't know why I care about this little boy's opinion anyways. Whatever, you just think you're all that because you have 100 and something followers. I only have 43, but you know what? I'm going to get more than you, so whatever. Okay, anyways. So on the first video, I talked about how to become an EMT. And it's really not that hard. You can become an EMT in, as little as 3 months. It's going to be a lot of work, but you can get through it. And then when you're done with EMT school, you just have to take a national exam to get your license to work as an EMT. But you can't get that until you actually pass the course. So make sure you go to a good school. Hopefully a school that's not too expensive. Community colleges are usually, they usually have good programs. So after you get through EMT school and you pass the NREMTs, you're gonna need a job, of course. And during EMT school, I didn't have like the greatest job. I worked at a store and I had my little 2000 Nissan, and I don't know, it was really hard for me during that time because this stupid car would break down. And like there was the first week of EMT school, it broke down and I was just like completely in tears because they have a rule that you couldn't be late. So it was just like a bad experience for me because the car broke down. I was late. I was scared they're gonna like kick me out of the program or drop my grade or something. And I really was trying to do my best. So yeah, that was a terrible thing. So I needed a new job. I was honestly desperate at this time. I was like, I was so happy when I got my certification. So I'm like, okay, I need a job. And there was this place that I really wanted to work at. I applied for a job there, and I also applied at a job that I didn't really want to work at, but it was kind of easier to get a job there. So I applied there too. And they called me first. They called me for an interview, and they were getting ready to hire me. Like, it's a company that really hires anyone. And, I was happy that I was getting an EMT job, but I really didn't want to work for that company. Like, the vibe was like completely off when I went in there. I could tell this is not somewhere that I want to work. So I was like desperate, because I'm like, I don't want to tell them no. And then I find, and then someone else calls me, a job that I actually calls me. So, I went to the job that I wanted. I dressed up, wore, professional, a professional outfit, and I had my resume, and I asked to speak with the hiring manager, and she actually spoke to me, and I was like, I really love this company. I love that your ambulances are clean. She laughed at that. She was like, you guys don't have roaches, like. Because I did a ride along at this other company and they had like a roach in their ambulance. So I was, she was laughing at that. And I told her, I really, really want this job. And she told me she was actually going to call me in a couple of days, prior to me coming in. She was actually going to call me to set up an interview. So I was happy about that. So she actually gave me the interview right there. Like, she asked me, why I wanted to be in EMT, whatever. And then she had me meet with someone else that very same day. And they asked me like some questions. I really wasn't prepared completely. Well, never mind. I was prepared. I was prepared because I had another interview with the other company. So everything that I messed up in that interview, it made it better for this one. So I felt like I did a great job, and probably the next day they called me and they told me I was hired. So that was a very, very exciting time in my life. I felt like my life was like changing at that moment, because now I was doing something that I wanted to do, not something I had to do. And of course, this thing's gonna die. Oh my God. Okay, so I was rudely interrupted by my camera. Of course, I'm always running out of space. But anyways, I was talking about how I got my job, and you really just have to go out your way to get something when you want it. Like if you really want a job and you can where it is and you can show up and just like hand them your resume, like try doing that if possible. Let's see. And of course, you have to apply to a few places that you really don't want to work, just to get the experience. Like sometimes that's really what it's about. Like you can't just like sit around and wait until a job like calls you, because you just never know when. So sometimes you just got to get in, get your experience, and leave. It's really not a job that you should have for over 20 years. Like I've known one person who's worked as an EMT for an extended amount of time, but it's really a job to get experience and move on, become a paramedic, become a nurse, become a PA, become a doctor, whatever. It's really not a job you're supposed to have for too long. And plus it gets boring because you get the basic calls. Like, not saying that you never have any good calls, but you're basically gonna get like, the transports, like the easy stuff. So typical day as an EMT, of course you have an EMT partner, and that experience can be good and bad. I don't think, I had like any terrible experience, but just working with people you in such close proximity, you're going to learn that, okay, it's easy to get on each other's nerves. That's the thing. Like, maybe you guys can be really good friends if you're not working together constantly. But when you work with someone like constantly, like you see their bad habits, you get to know a lot about them. And yeah, it can become a lot at certain times. But you can also have a lot of fun. You can have a great experience working with great people. For the most part, I think I worked with great people. Of course, there are some people that's really weird that you work with, but you just gotta deal with it. That's just a part of the job, because you're sitting there with them for 12 hours. So I don't know. Sometimes you're going to be talking about some weird stuff, and you're going to experience certain things that only you will share with that person. Like no one else will really understand it if you explain it to them. So, it's a unique experience. So the first thing you do when you come in, you check your truck out, you do an inventory check, and you see like, okay, what's in there? What do you need? Like, you check your equipment, and you just make sure everything is good with the truck. You're supposed to check the oil. Of course, no one ever really checked the oil, but those trucks can blow up if you don't check that oil, or your engine can blow up, whatever. And so really, like, once you check the truck out, then you go out to a specific location. Like, you got to stay within a certain area. That way, if you get a call in that area, you respond to it. So you're assigned to a different location, and you can really just wait. Let me see. Yeah, you can post up. I was trying to think of the word, but you can post up at different places. You can post up at a store, or you can go shopping while you wait for a call. You have a lot of freedom while you're out there on the road. You just got to make sure that whenever you get a call, that you respond to the call. You know, you're not just like in a long line or waiting for something while you have a call. Like, that's a big no-no. So they pretty much let you do what you want as long as you respond to your calls. Like, I went shopping for bathing suits, like, you know, and stuff like that while I was at work. As long as you respond, that's all they care about. Let's see. So, like, we responded with the fire department because we did 911 calls. You may work at a company that mainly does interfacility, and that's really when you transport, you know, dialysis patients or people to their like appointments or whatever. But the company I work for, I wanted to work with them because they did the 911 calls with the fire department. So, you know, you respond with the fire, and they decide if you are going to be taking the patient to the hospital or if it's something traumatic or something serious. Like, there's certain protocols you have to follow. They have to take the patient if it's, you know, a higher level of care. And I don't think my experience was like on TV. Like, I don't know, sometimes they make it like over dramatic or whatever, but I still think I had like fun experiences. And my favorite thing, of course, was going lights and sirens when you get to run the red lights and you get to speed and all that. Of course, you can't go crazy with it, but it's a fun experience because sometimes when you're driving, you see how the other drivers get all panicked, like they're just swerving to the side of the road. I'm like, okay, it's not that serious. But I mean, I laughed at it. I thought it was funny. But I think that was like one of my favorite things to do. At first I was scared to drive. Like, for a long time I didn't drive because I was afraid of getting into an accident because I wasn't used to driving such, you know, big truck. Like, I mean, I was always afraid I was going to hit somebody, especially on the highway. So, I mean, I got used to it, though. It was a cool experience. So one thing that's like funny about being an EMT and being like, you know, like a person of color is that when you go and you go to different people's houses, you go to different neighborhoods. When you go to Black people's houses, they're always like, oh my gosh, you know, you guys are doing a great job, you know, keep it up. And they're always happy to see like another like Black person, you know, especially if you and your partner are Black, they're going to be like, yeah, you know, they're always like happy to see that, and they're always encouraging. So I thought that was always funny. Like, they said the funniest things. Like, I would just bust out laughing. But that was one of the funny moments of going to people's houses and like hearing their commentaries. And I think it's really good to get this experience if you're trying to get into nursing or PA school or being a doctor or whatever. Because you get to work with someone else, but you have to know the information also. Like, you learn how to make decisions. Like, you can't depend on your partner to know everything because it's a collaborative effort. Like, if you don't know anything, then you're not going to contribute. Like, sometimes we forget things, and it's always good to have a partner that's sharp because maybe I forgot something. Maybe I forgot how to splint, you know, a certain limb or whatever. And, you know, my partner is really good at splinting. So it's really good to just know your information. A lot of times my partner and I would, of course, read up on certain things before we went to certain calls because you do forget. So you just got to make sure that you're keeping up with your education, and because it's easy to forget things that you're not using. Let's see. And one good thing about being an EMT is that you learn how to do manual blood pressures. Like, some people that I work with now, like now that I'm a tech at the hospital, they don't know how to do that. And, you know, I'm not trying to be shady or whatever. But as an EMT, you learn how to do manual blood pressures. At the hospital, they use machines a lot. And in the field, you don't have that. You have to know how to do blood pressures and, check the pulse and doing all that stuff. Like, you have to know how to do the basics, and it gives you a lot of practice. And you learn how to do patient assessments and other skills that you can't do at this level at the hospital. Because I don't really do patient assessments like that at the hospital. At least not like a detailed assessment. Like, usually that's what the nurses do. Or the doctors. But as a tech, you're really just in there with your machine doing vitals. And I mean, you do other stuff, but you're not really hands-on with, making decisions and stuff like that. You learn how to do other things as an EMT, intubation, splinting, backboarding. You use the cervical collar. Like, you learn a lot of those emergency skills, and you can use that in your personal life. Like, if anything happens and you're out there, you're at the mall, like, you probably know how to react better than someone who hasn't had that experience. So that's a good thing about being an EMT. How to be a successful EMT, of course, as I said earlier, you just gotta study, stay sharp, and just do your job. Don't be one of those people that slacks off. Don't do their patient assessment. And, if you don't want to get into patient care, just don't do it. Like, you shouldn't sacrifice someone's health by doing a crappy job because you just don't feel like, providing that care. Some funny stories that I had. Of course, I was the idiot that got chased by a dog. We went to someone's house, and of course I'm really terrified of dogs. And of course I asked her, do you have a dog? Because I heard a dog, and then I'm like, you have a dog? Did you tie the dog up, whatever? She said yes. But my senses were just like tingling. They were like, no, I don't think she did that, because that dog was barking and it felt like this thing was loose. So I'm like, okay, well, I need to hurry up, get this patient and hurry out of there. Because, usually we do like some vitals on scene, but I'm like, we don't have time for that. We just going to get this patient, go and do everything in the back of the ambulance, because I'm not going to get bitten by a dog today. So basically, we go in, we get the patient, and we're coming out. And then out of nowhere, I seen this dog like running like towards us. I just lost it. Like, I didn't care that I was an EMT. I was like, okay, right now, Usain Bolt. Like, I jumped on top of the freaking stretcher. And the patient was like, I think he was like autistic or whatever, but he was calm, thankfully, but I was just on there with him. Like, and I don't know how I jumped that high, but that was like, I was so scared. Like, I was terrified. And of course, they never let me forget that story. That was like, my story among others. I had other stories too. I had this other patient. She doesn't like to be called ma'am. Like, she's like 60 something, and she thinks she's like 20. Like, she thought she was younger than me, and she did not want to be called ma'am. Like, normally, of course, as a sign of respect, you're going to say, all right, ma'am, we have to do this, whatever. No, do not call me ma'am. And, I kept calling her ma'am, not to provoke her, but just out of habit, and she chased me out her house with like a broom. Like, she chased me out, and I just ran. I went in the ambulance, and, they actually did have a note in her file that she did not want to be called ma'am. I thought that was the funniest thing, but You know, after a while, I just didn't want to be an EMT because I was like, okay, it's kind of mundane at this point. Like, I mean, I like the people, but sometimes, like, when you feel like you've learned everything, you know, I wouldn't say everything, but when you've been doing the same thing over and over again and it just becomes like so repetitive, like you just want to try something new. So that's why I wanted to become a tech. And of course, if you haven't seen my video about the accident that I had, that was kind of like my last straw. I'm like, okay, I'm not trying to die doing this job. I have other goals that I want to accomplish. So that really just like pushed me to apply for a job at the hospital. I mean, working at the hospital, I do feel safer. You know, I feel like I don't have to really watch my back because you have security, you have like a team there with you that if anything goes down, they're there in like 2 seconds. So I do feel safer, but my EMT experience was unique. I had a lot of fun and, you know, it's just, I have good memories from that. So yeah, that was my EMT experience, you know, and I think, as I said earlier, if you're trying to get into the PA profession or, you know, nursing or medical school, it's good experience and you will learn a lot. And yeah, so stay tuned for my next video. If you have any questions about this one, be sure to write it in the comments below and I will comment back. So see you guys later.